Okay, it is the appointed time to have the Civil Service Merit Board meeting for January 8th, 2025. So I want to call that meeting to order and start by calling the roll. Jane Roberts. Present. Scott Schimmel. Present. Stephanie Taylor. Present. And I want to welcome our new member, but ask first Cynthia Durrell, you're present. Present. And I want to welcome you to the board. We really appreciate, I know you just got voted on by council last night, and we really appreciate you joining us and serving. You do a lot of important work here, so thank you very much for serving. Okay. Let's have the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes that was of the meeting held on November 13th? So moved.
Motion, second.
Motion, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The minutes are approved. It's now time for reports regarding litigation. Do we have any from Devin Lyon? Devin's up there, but that's why I called on him. But Anderson, you're we'll call on you, Anderson.
The city law department has no report.
Okay. Thank you. And we're ready for the civil service staff report, so we'll turn to Mr. Bradshaw for that.
Yeah, thank you. The first item on here, I'm changing things up a little bit with the staff report, but I just wanted to take this opportunity at the top I'd love to get some guidance and feedback going forward about the type of information you guys would like in this report, so just keep that in mind and let me know. The direction I thought I would take was a little bit more about sort of what's been going on and how we've been doing, and trying to give I think the best way to communicate some of that's with numbers. I'm sort of a numbers guy, so I did bring a few stats and things that I wanted to share with the group. Yeah, I just wanted to note that there, and if you guys, maybe at the end, or in an email or whatever the case may be, but if there was any feedback or guidance on the kind of information you guys would like, or something I'm sharing that's not necessary or something additional, I'd love to know and have that feedback. So the first handout I made, and I apologize for having to resort to the legal size paper. I know nobody likes legal size.
Spell your last name again, please.
No offense to Anderson there, but are we having a technical issue?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, I'll start. Laura Peck, everyone, our technical person here from the office. Anyway, I'll start with the some stats here we've got on. These are just numbers on postings that we've done since I started on October 2nd. We've taken a bit of a new approach on our how we're tracking. So this is a new spreadsheet we've got, helps organize some of the work we're doing in terms of jobs we're posting for. So I wanted to share that with you guys. The format, I think, is pretty nice, and we have a lot more information on the spreadsheets. But then just the substance of it itself, the content. But this is hopefully fairly self-explanatory. But just so that we're tracking the requisition, the position in the department, the number of positions we're recruiting for, and then all the dates help us keep an idea on timetables and how we're doing in terms of performance and accountability. So yeah, that's just the date the requisition comes in, it's approved, the date it's received, a little notice to whether we had to do any updates on the exam or not, when the job was posted, when the testing took place, and sometimes there's more than one date of testing depending on the response we have. The date that the referral is made, that's the list of candidates that we send to the department for them to do interviews for. The date that it's returned with a selection on it, and then that's the name of the selected applicant, and start date. And then we have some numbers off to the side, sort of tracking the length of time there that it takes. So obviously, I think for efficiency's sake, we want that number to be as low as possible. So I think in order to achieve that, we need to be tracking it pretty religiously, right? So that's the point of this, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Something I intend to keep doing is as long as I'm here, and I think having this level of data will help us as we move forward with making decisions and see what we're doing well and what we need to improve on, that sort of thing. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. Are there any questions about that?
Couple of questions,
Yeah.
just kind of following the differences in different, I guess, positions.
Mhm.
So it's like the very first one, it was going along, and then all of a sudden, date of final return referral canceled. So like what transpired with that?
Yeah, circumstances are different for every situation. The sign and marking, I don't recall offhand, but the next two I do, the transportation jobs, that was a situation where they were trying to cast as wide of a net as possible. So they only had one opening, but they posted 3 jobs to try to find a candidate. That was a request that the department had made. So we actually did 3 different postings, and they filled it as the manager, Aaron Fritz, started on January 6th. So yeah, the other 2 positions were canceled. They were not funded for 3 positions, they were funded for 1.
Okay.
But we posted 3, so they could pick and choose. They weren't particular on whether it was an engineer, professional engineer, or an engineer manager. They were trying to get a candidate. So some of the professional departments that struggle a little bit getting good applicants, that's a tactic that's sometimes used, and that's what happened there. But yeah, stuff happens. They'll move somebody, or it's when it's canceled, it's always at the department's request. I can't think of an example when we canceled it on our own. But that's the reason.
All right, one other quick question. So date received from HR, sometimes there's dates, sometimes there's not applicable, and sometimes there's refer.
Yeah,
The difference between those 3.
the refer is when it goes straight to referral. Those are usually like the continuous postings. This is one of the ways we've found in recent years to get our timetable down. So something like Public Service Worker 1, for instance, it's posted continuously. So it's always posted, we're always accepting applications, there are no distinct posting periods. And then we refer it sort of as there are openings or as they're needed. So when they send a requisition, there's already a standing list of applicants, and we don't have to do a posting process. So it's sort of skipped it. We can just go straight from when we receive the requisition to give them that list, and they can make picks from it. So that's what that means, straight to refer only. And then there is sometimes a delay between the date the requisition is approved. That means it's approved by the department when the department head signs it. So that's routed. And the last approver is when HR approves it. So it's got to go through finance, and then Kelly has a process. And but by the time we receive it and are ready to act on it, that's that second column. It's usually pretty quick, but sometimes it's over a weekend. It's not really 3 days. It's just it's submitted on a Friday, we approve it on a Monday, and it looks like 3 days. But yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. If there's nothing more on that one, the second one I got, you guys love these numbers, right?
I do.
I love it.
Because I guess
We like them.
I do too.
The next one, this is a similar concept. So obviously we don't do written, we test for everything. Everything is tested, right? Every position. That's what we do, is we administer exams. Not every test is a written exam, however. It's sort of a misconception at times, but sometimes tests are just questionnaires and things. But for our written exams, those do tend to be sort of time-consuming affairs. It's an important thing we do, but they take a lot of staff work and a lot of time. So, and it can be a limit to the number of applications we get at times. So I wanted to be mindful of that. It's crucially important, but anyway, this spreadsheet, that's this one, is the everything that we've done a written test for in 2024. And we tracked the test that we administered, the department it was for, the dates that it was posted, and then these are applicant numbers in these last columns. So the first column, that's the number of applicants who met the minimum qualifications. So raw applicants come in, right? They're screened by our staff to make sure they meet qualifications, and that's this number. So for the first one, that deputy clerk one, we had, it had 2 postings in 2024. The first one was 23 and met minimums. Of those 20 scheduled an exam. One of the things we've been moving towards is self-scheduled exams rather than us sending postcards in the mail like we used to do in the old days. There's an email that goes out. Acuity is the name of the company. The applicants, that way they can schedule their own test, which is applicant friendly. So of those 23 that met, they were given a link to schedule an exam. 20 of them did, and then 11 of them actually showed up to test. Right. So that's a 48% response rate. 11 out of the original 23 that met. Not fantastic. But anyway, this column down, all the way down, shows what our response rates are. They're actually better than I thought they would be, but they're not nearly good enough. Anyway, I want to be mindful of that and making sure with the problems we have with getting applicants, they're precious, right? You want to take care of them. So whatever we can do, I think, to make this experience as convenient as possible for them, while still obviously ensuring we're making merit-based appointments and are hiring qualified people. I think that's the direction we need to go. Anyway, in order to make those kinds of decisions, this is the kind of data you need to track and be mindful of, and try to see where, and then once you have the data, you can look at it and try to make some decisions about why is our response rate so low in some of these areas? So broke it down by department there at the bottom. 311 is pretty poor. They're the lowest on the response rate. It's they hire a lot of entry-level call center type operators. It probably has something to do with it. But in any event, this is some good data to have, which our team has put together in civil service, and I wanted to share that with you guys to see, give you an idea of what we're administering written exams for, and then what our response rates look like, and this will help as we talk in the future about ways to make improvements. A lot of the things we need to improve are how to get more applicants and better applicants, right? That's the thing I'm always preaching. But we want more applicants, we want better applicants. How do we do that? Part of that's going to be making the applicant experience as friendly as possible, while still ensuring we're doing our charter mandated merit protections for hiring. So anyway, any questions about this data?
Do you have any historical data on this? Is this just wondering whether any trend you've noticed is on the response?
Yeah, we've got good data in this format, and I can share this with you if you're interested. But this is calendar year 24. We've got calendar year 23, and we have some data going back to 2022. We have, which was, I think 22, 23 was the last year of data that we had in the old way. So that was part of the reason, was seeing how the new scheduling is working. It's something Vicki had started in 2023, this Acuity self-scheduling thing. We did see an uptick, a small uptick. I thought it would be better, but we did see a small uptick in response rates after we switched to the Acuity system. And now we may still be having a problem with spam filters and the like, because these are email communications. I think that could be part of it. Maybe we need to be more tenacious with our outreach and contacting applicants. Hey, you got this email, hadn't scheduled it yet. I'll just call and check to see if there's anything we can help you with. That sort of thing. Something I'm interested in maybe being a little more proactive on. We do track it back till 2022, and we have that data for the old way and the new way. And that was the purpose of that. We are talking about being a little more friendly. I think even now they can schedule appointments, but if they have a change or something comes up, they usually have to call the office. We get a lot of calls, but I think there's probably people that don't want to fool with calling, or sometimes they'll schedule 4 different times. Obviously, they can only report to one of them. But that's the sort of thing, but that takes up slots for somebody else. So I think we're talking about maybe if we adjust that somewhat so that they can do their own schedule adjustments and just put it all on in their hands, maybe that would help with some of that issue. But yeah, it's something we're always actively looking at, trying to figure out what we can do better.
Thank you.
One quick thing I noticed is, do you have one more tested than you have scheduled for the second ABD public info specialist?
Interesting. That one was, we had some multiple postings on that one, as I recall. Yeah, something is funky with that one, because we had 100% response rate, which can't be right.
Well, the second one.
Yeah.
There were 18 out of 18, you know, that one, and somehow you had 14 people scheduled, but 15 people tested.
Yeah, and my guess is it's a leftover from an earlier posting. They came in to do a retest, that sort of thing. But it happens a lot with active duty military folks. We'll let them test and you know, we'll try to make accommodations for them, but maybe they applied some time ago and were deployed, and then they come in and test when they're able. So it could have been one of those, I don't know specifically, but I know we do. I've done several of those since in the last 3 months, or try to make accommodations for folks like that. But yeah, it has to be a situation where they'd applied at some other time, and then that was when they were able to show up. So that's what happened.
I was just looking at the differences between, because your report rate is based on tested and people that met the minimums, but if you want another column, it may be also interesting to look at tested versus scheduled. Because for the most part, those are fairly high between those two, but there are a couple of them that are significantly lower. Like a lot of them are 100% or close to it, and some of them are lower. Yeah, that just may give you a different set of numbers. I don't know if that adds anything to that.
I think it'd be helpful to know. The goal in this was originally just to see because it's really easy to see the raw applicants, right? Like there's easy people sub reports to run for that. Just find applicants and enter a job code, and you know, I got 82 applicants for this job. Why am I having trouble? Well, so yeah, I'm trying to drill in and see why are we having trouble? Where are they falling out? That looks great on the surface, you know, but then it turns into 39, and then, you know, 39 real applicants, which is a lot less than 82. So, and it's more pronounced in some of the other smaller jobs. But I know it can be frustrating when, as a department head myself or another department, when I have trouble recruiting myself for fleet, the other hat. And I'll call in when they close and say, how'd we do? You know, well, we got 11. That's great. Let's move forward. You know, and then you know, my choice of that is asking, well, let's repost again, try to get a better number, or extend the deadline, that sort of thing. But they say 11 or 12. I'm like, okay, that's good. We'll go with that. And then I get a list with 3 on it, and it's disappointing. So I think folks have that concern for trying to.
But maybe you got the 3 best.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, yeah, we're giving them the best candidates. So that's at the end of the day, that's. There have been times when I've got a list with one name on it, and we hired that person. In fact, more than one example of that. But that's yep, absolutely, you're right about that.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, the next one. This was just we meet with finance pretty regularly. But they have made a point this year of, past years too, but they do go around, our analyst, his name's Lester Finney, and the executive director of finance, Kitchen. We sat down and met with them a couple weeks ago just to go over where we're at financially. So we've got a little, not quite a mid-year report. It's through the end of November. The end of December report will be pending. We'll get that soon, but. Sort of give you an idea that it's a good time to sort of look at where we're at and project where we're going to be by the end of the fiscal year. Obviously, the fiscal year, as you guys know, July 1 to June 30th. So this is it's a new year to some people. It's a mid-year for others, but it's a mid-year for me. But yeah, so this is just you know, I don't necessarily want to highlight anything specifically here, but give you an idea of where our what we're budgeted for. That first column there, what we've actually spent, and then the remainder and the percentage there. So we're not in bad shape really. There's some line items we've we'd like to utilize a little more, that sort of thing, but I guess I didn't have anything specific I wanted to talk about on this one. I just wanted to make sure you guys had it. But if you had any questions about any of these line items or any of these costs, I may not have every cost memorized. I've got a pretty good idea. I'm happy to address any of that if you'd like.
Sorry, I guess I need to start wearing reading glasses. Is the fourth column say encumbrances?
Yes.
What is the 37,000 miscellaneous professional fees and encumbrances?
That one has to do, I think that's the one we use for hearing officers. It's separate from, so those are all litigation categories there. 8351s are outside counsel, and then litigation expenses, and then miscellaneous. I think what we're using miscellaneous professional services for is to pay for hearing officers. So we've had a big uptick in grievances over the last few months. So the amount of work that hearing officers have been doing has increased significantly. We've had more so far this fiscal year in the last 6 months than we had in several years combined. A lot of that was from a big group of folks filing grievances on sort of the same issue. But nevertheless, the numbers go up, and there's a lot more administrative costs involved in that. So that's the biggest portion of that particular line item.
Are there numbers in the orange lines, totals?
Yes, they did not print well.
I can't see those at all.
Yeah,
In the green too, yeah.
yeah, my apologies on that. They're clear on the Excel spreadsheet, if that helps you, but yeah, I guess the total personnel services is that first big chunk there, 42% usage. So it's a $597,000 budget. We've spent $343, so about 42%. The next supply line item is only $7,500. We've spent $796, so we only spent 11%. We've got a lot of room to grow there. And then the last big chunk there, the services, $295,000 budgeted. We've spent 126, or we've spent 132 with 37 encumbrances, which we have 126 remaining. So we've used about 57% of that. We're a little high on that. But a lot of that, as we said, was legal related things.
One more quick question. I'm not familiar with amended budgets. Like, how often does the budget get amended? So, I mean, I'm assuming the first column was what was adopted at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
How often, I mean, how does that get amended, and how often does it happen?
The city will pass, I mean, it varies. I mean, in civil service, our budget does not get amended very often, occasionally. But the city will pass a budget amendment from time to time. We've had one this year, maybe two.
They appear, occasionally there's unanticipated, expenditures or something, and there'll be, at the council meeting, they'll present an amendment to the budget, and I guess hypothetically, sort of, I wouldn't want to call it cleanup necessarily, but things that were unanticipated in any department budget will appear in that. Usually it's not, it's dominated usually by large items like in engineering oftentimes, a new contract, but that happens just often on.
Yeah.
So you say civil service usually isn't highlighted there.
I think it'd be interesting to know, though, when our budget does get amended. So maybe having the adopted budget, the original numbers, and knowing if those had been amended might be interesting.
I will say the line items do get amended from time to time. That's done internally, or finance does it. But in instances where we're getting maybe near the end of the year and we're maybe maxed out in one line item, but another's funding another line item, we're trying to keep it under budget. They can do little small transfers. And we just work with our analysts for that sort of thing. But that's when no additional funding is required. You're just sort of moving something from one line to another. Pretty routine. Since you mentioned it, I will. Actually, is there any more budget questions? That's a great segue to our next item, though. But any other questions on our budget thing? Modernization initiatives. I have spoken to the administration about requesting some more money if there were a budget amendment to be done, or for the next fiscal year, whichever the case may be. But to do a couple of what I'm calling modernizing initiatives. But basically, we've got a lot of historic records in civil service that a lot of folks don't really have access to because they're all hardbound. They're sort of sitting in my office, which is convenient for me, not so convenient for the citizens we serve. So we'd like to spend some money to digitize those. It's a pretty big project, so it's not something we can just absorb in the budget, but I'd like to get a little money to do that. I think it'd be a really good thing for transparency and accountability and all those things. But minutes and agenda packets and attachments going back to the 1920s, among other things. So may not need some of the really older ones, but a lot of the more recent ones are really helpful. Part of that's it's digitizing records so that we can have more ready access to those. And then I also like to, our current contract that we have for test administration for written tests, we have 150 licenses for online tests, which is a great feature that we have not taken advantage of enough. And I'm trying to take advantage of that more. I think we used something like single digits when I came on. We used very, very few. I'm trying to start doing more of that, and just for $3,000 more, we can get 500 licenses. This is another thing that will help applicants, and as we schedule tests and things with people, I think it'd be helpful if we give them options. You don't have to report to the city, and into the GM or where we're testing at that day, and take this test on the Chromebook. You could take it from home if you'd like, and I hope that will help with our response rates and ultimately get us more applicants, better applicants, right? That's what we're trying to do. So anyway, I wanted to share that with the board. We're trying to get some funds to do that, something I've been talking about. Any questions about that? I'll say another project we've got going on is a rules review and update. This is something I talked to Vicki about when we were doing the handover meetings, but our rules they need some work, right? We've not done a lot of updating since we've not done a lot of updating. Especially since a lot of the changes happened in 2020 with HR. So there are some instances in the rules where our rules are not consistent with the code. Code obviously trumps our rules. So basically our rules are invalid. We've got invalid rules that are published, and I think that's not a good situation for us to be in. We want our rules to have integrity. We want our employees to, when they go on the intranet to look at our rules, to read them and have confidence that they're accurate and that they're in effect. They don't need a law degree to cross-reference what's in our published rules with the code. They shouldn't have to do that. So our rules need to be, number one, they need to be accurate, and we need to have integrity, we need to have confidence that they're correct. That's not the case at this present time, I would say. Another thing, just as I've been in this role for 3 months now, when I have to consult the rules, which I have to do frequently, they're not very well constructed. They're not very well written in many cases. I have to look for somebody asks a question, and my first stop is the rules, right? To try to answer it, and I like to be able to read that rule and have some confidence that I can interpret it correctly, and especially for someone who doesn't have decades of, I do have some institutional knowledge, but I think, and the next person as well is probably not going to either. There aren't that many people have all kinds of institutional knowledge. Shouldn't have to, right? The rules should be good. You should be able to read the rules and get an answer to the question without having to have been here for 30 years, right? That's the goal, I think. So to that end, we need to clean these suckers up. Nothing. I'm not looking to do any kind of major, like removing anything, or we're not trying to attack merit-based hiring or employee protections or grievances or appeals or anything like that. This is really more of a housekeeping thing. And obviously, we have full-blown hearings and new rule,
Yeah, they all come back to us.
Absolutely,
Public
yeah.
notice part, so
Yeah,
you're preparing something to bring back
Yes.
to the board.
Yeah, that's it. And we'll have ample opportunities to review those and then ultimately approve or not with public input as well. So that's a much, much needed project, and I'd love to get that done while I'm here. So I just want to give a heads up about that, and I'm happy to answer. We have, the city has contracted, talked to Chairman Lyons and Law Director Swanson about getting some legal assistance with that. I felt like, and we love Anderson, and I use Anderson every day, and Anderson's wonderful. I felt like it would be better to have a third party, an outside counsel, assist with this, with legal drafting. It's certainly better than me doing it myself. So we did contract with Devin Lyon, who's a local attorney who's done some work with the city before, has been a third-party outside counsel on some other city apps. It has some familiarity with a lot of our personnel systems. In fact, had worked in the law department some years ago, and he actually was the board's attorney for a while, or the law department's attorney assigned to the board. So I think he'll be
Right, and I emailed and informed the board of the discussion we would have. They figured like we needed to quickly move on getting these. You're right, I mean, for everybody's sake, obviously all employees need to know what the rules are clearly as possible. And I think it is, we agreed to get an outside attorney, not that Anderson couldn't handle it, but there's still a little bit of making sure there's some arm's length between what we do and the city on some occasions, and when you're talking about civil service rules and administration rules, we want to be consistent, but we also want to make sure that the spirit and the intent of civil service is protected there. So that's why in these cases, we have another another discussion item coming up about when to use outside counsel when we do think that arm's length is a little more appropriate, or that the city doesn't have the capacity at the moment to assign. Say Anderson's got other things he works on too.
So that's we'll have a work product to present for the board to review, and it'll be at least a couple months, maybe more than that. It'll take some time, but if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to answer it. I think Devin's on if you need questions specifically to him, but any questions on that line?
Appreciate the work he did on PEO reports and everything for us a year or so ago.
Yeah,
right. That was good. Hey, Devin,
He's trying.
Mute it. Okay. Oh, I see. We'll take the thumbs up.
Can you hear? Yeah, is the sound back?
I think we got a sound issue here. So.
Yeah.
Did we get the sound fixed for the people watching?
They can hear us, but obviously we can't hear them. So.
Wow, playing trade.
Okay. We have every confidence in Devin.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess the last little item on here. I want to keep this item on at every meeting while we're here. This is a long-term project. I'm not going to get this finished while I'm here, but I do want to make sure we're talking about it intentionally every month. But obviously, as we discussed at the last meeting, there is a bigger project going on to do some updates to our HR information system software, PeopleSoft. A part of that project is going to be looking at the recruiting application module. That's something I met with Mark Parker about, and I've talked to this board about at last month's meeting. It's, I think not a ton has happened since then, but we have had some meetings and conversations, and we've got involved, or we've got access to some recruiting training, Oracle recruiting from Oracle, the software company provider. So just to give us a basic knowledge of, I think the approach, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, but the approach we talked about was learning sort of what comes out of the box, as far as a recruiting applicant software, and then how can we make that work for us. There's way too many customizations on it right now, and Mark Parker can speak very intelligently on this, much more than I can, but a lot of the problems we're having with our search engines crashing, and right now it works best in Firefox, and it crashes really bad on Chrome and Edge. We're having a lot of, it's a miracle we have as many applicants as we do, honestly, because of the technical problems we have.
Maybe that explains some of the response rates.
Yeah.
Kind of hard if your computer's crashing all the time.
Yeah, so we do have disclaimers on there now about works best with Firefox, which I'm embarrassed about, but, we're trying to fix it, bottom line. It's going to take some time. But, whatever we do, I think we need to, I think the best approach to take is not how we translate what we're currently doing to the new PeopleSoft, but maybe look at it from the other direction of what does PeopleSoft have, and how can we make that fit us with as little customization as possible, so we can avoid future crashes and technical issues. So that's the idea. Right now it's very early stages, but right now we're sort of to that end. We're trying to familiarize ourselves, me, Missy, and Laura, our HR analysts, with some of these trainings, Oracle trainings about what does Oracle's recruiting module look like and how do we learn about that. So, but I just want to leave that on. That's the one I want to have every month, just to make sure we're following up on that and talking about that, and then that'll be a project we work on long term.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that update. Now we have the HR report.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start with something that's not on here because I was hoping Nick was going to bring it up, but he didn't. On January 22nd, there's going to be, yeah, see? I was like, all right.
I talk so much as it was.
So, all right, on January 22nd, the city, I don't know if anybody saw that on the news this morning, but the city is going to have our first huge job fair. It's going to be a hiring fair, and we've been working with public service, with civil service, with HR, and we're actually planning to hire 20 new employees actually on that day. Wow. This is something very different, and so Nick, please jump in and add here, but from the applicant side, they're going to be able to apply right there. They will go on an interview right there. They can do their background check, and I'll tell you a little bit about that right there. And then benefits has worked it out that they will get their medical right there. Oh, so they will do all of that, and they will actually, at the end of that, have a contingent offer of employment for February 3rd. So this is the first time we've tried it, and all of the stars have aligned. This is the HR, benefits, and civil service is in 100% alignment. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And so we're so excited about that. Nick, anything I need that I missed?
I like everything you said, but really excited about it. It's something we love it. And I've got a great team in HR and a great team in benefits. Everybody's working together to make this happen. It's a really creative approach for the city, something we've not done before. Happy to be part of the team. And it's just, can't say good things about the project. I would have mentioned it, but I feel like I talked too much.
You just wanted me to have my stuff.
Yes.
My little shine.
You run with that one.
Oh, the other thing that is really exciting about is what I should have started with is that the rate of pay is now going to $18.03. I think it says 18, but I think it's $18.03 an hour. This is the first time, so our public service workers right now are at 15, somewhere close, 15 something, and we are now, we are struggling. As you all know, that you can go work at Chick-fil-A or any of those places at that rate. And so it's pretty cold outside today, and our employees are outside, and our employees are doing the things that they need to do to support our city. And so what an amazing opportunity that we are able to start that starting rate of 18, I'm pretty sure it's 18.03, but $18 an hour. And that is such an amazing opportunity. We believe that we'll have a good turnout. It's all over the media. Communications is working through all of that. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's a big deal. And our team's working on that. Mary Margaret is a big piece in that as well. So all of that is truly coming together. First time ever. I wanted to tell you quickly about the CDL administrative rule update. This happened in December, but it's the administrative rule 13 about the CDL alcohol and drug clearinghouse. Everyone has received the training and it's a federal requirement. So I just wanted to remind you all that we're all finally in compliance. That administrative rule has been updated as well. And then something else that we're doing for the first time is defensive driving. All of our employees, if you drive, and the term I think is light vehicle, it's a car, pretty much a car. And if you need to drive a city vehicle, you have to go through defensive driving. Benefits is going to catch up with all of this. This is another one of these, the stars are all aligning. And Benefits is working to get all of the employees that are currently do not have that defensive driving training. And HR now on our new hire orientation is actually doing defensive driving starting with every employee. So this is a new opportunity for us as well. I also want to talk about Title VI. Title VI training, we had a huge, this is the first time we've ever done that with all of our partners. So we had the airport, we had KUB, we had PBA, we had, I'm missing two more and I'll say them in a minute. But we had all of our partners together, KCDC, and I'm trying to think who our last one. But we had all of our partners together to look at Title VI, and we are changing our dates for when we do Title VI. We have a full new Title VI training that all employees will get, that all employees are getting as well. But our new deadline, we have to report this by statute to the City Council in by May 1st. So we're working in since I've been doing this, it's been a catch-up, a little craziness. So we've changed the deadline, and we will be we won't be in a rush to compliance and working on the back end. We will be in compliance and we'll be able to present that early. So we're excited about that. Next month, I'll have the training calendar for you all, but our next supervisor training is March 6th. I'm going to tell you about a real cool training, and it's called Lego Serious Play. Anybody ever heard of Lego Serious Play? It is, and you know Paul, actually. We connected with Paul Bowles, an executive coach, and he came into our HR department and did Lego Serious Play. Now that sounds really crazy. If anybody knows about any children at some point in time who had Legos and those fun things, I remember stepping on them and not saying the right words. And so Legos are not the best on the floor. And I never would have thought that I wanted to play with Legos and see how it works for team building. But it was one of the best trainings. I know the SHRM is actually, for the state of Georgia, is doing a huge training on Lego Serious Play. We're actually going to bring this in this spring into the city for all city leaders. And so it's going to be something that is unique and different, and we're in the front place of that as well. Wanted to let you know. Benchmarking, I've talked about this for several months now. We're almost at the end because we have to turn this in for budgeting. We've been working with MTask and VASCO groups and looking at all of our benchmarking. There were 50-some positions, and we're actually going to finalize those 50 positions and look at that to determine if we are correctly paying them. Each August, we ask for departments to ask us about positions that may not be properly paid, and we look at the classification and the compensation. And so we're going to submit any information for the new budget year coming up with that. But that also goes into the KFD, the fire department. We have been working with the fire department. You all know that last year we did work with the police department to look at their positions, and we're working with a consulting group, McGrath Consulting Group, that specializes in fire departments, and they are working on all of those benchmarking, and so we will present that by the end of the month is what we're hoping for is there. In addition, I was so excited to hear Nick talk about the analytics. HR is working on analytics as well, and we are actually in the middle of interviewing for a data analytics coordinator. This is the new thing as we look at benchmarking, as we look at metrics, as we look at scorecards. What are we doing? And we need to be more predictive. I've talked to you all about surveys, engagement surveys versus exit surveys, looking at all of these things and how do we have predictive indexes and what are we looking for to do the best that we can for our employees. So we'll be working with civil service. We're going to hire a person that will specialize in looking at that. That person will be working with IT as we're doing the new Fusion launch that will go into effect in October to look at all of our systems. They're going to be looking at every system that we are working with and how to become more efficient. So this is something, as we're looking at this, the goal is to help HR to be more efficient, to help the city to be more efficient as we look at hiring. And one of the big pieces that we will look at will be our performance measures. So we will look at that as well. I'm going to end with reclassification. I'll give a little update next month on interns because there's a lot of things that's going on interns, and I'm going to hold that for next month. And then January 27th is the deadline. All employees have been given information about reclassifications or new classes, information that needs to, if they feel that their job is not properly classified or if a department or position needs to have new classification. That deadline for all employees is January 27th, and we will do that review. That will go back in. We will bring information back to you all. You all have to be aware of some of these things as well, and then we will present it to the mayor with the and city council in the spring. So I think I've covered everything. The new thing that I wanted to tell you about is when we talk about background checks, is that we're going to be working with Checker. Checker is a national background check. Currently, we work with the police department, and they do a local background check, which is NCIC check. And so we are now, what we found is that the local check checks only locally. Surprise, surprise when I say that. And so what we are finding is that we have applicants that may not reside in Knoxville, may have been from Chattanooga, may have been from wherever. And so we need to have a more comprehensive background check. And so we're working with them. There's a cost per applicant to do this, and that's one of the things you all were talking about, a budget amendment. We're not sure if it's going to require, I don't think it will in this budget year, because there's a cost for each applicant to do a national check, criminal background check on all of these individuals. And so there's a cost that's associated with that, but it's going to be better for all of our employees and better for hiring. So we're looking at that. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Okay, I don't think we have any unfinished business. So under new business, of course, we're in the process of selecting our next executive secretary. So Jane, would you like to fill us in along that process as chair of the committee?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate Nick for spending all of his time and promise not to keep him there indefinitely. I know you've got your other job to get back to, but we appreciate everything you've done for us so far. So just an update from our Civil Service Merit Board, Civil Service Executive Secretary, Search Committee, it's a mouthful. So we have met and we do have a final job description, and that's in the packet. You all have a copy of that we would like to give to the board for final approval technically, so we can get this on to the next steps with civil service and HR and posting, and actually start really moving forward with our candidate search on this. So
how do you want to proceed on that? I mean, you want a formal vote from us, or?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah, if we can agree to it, if you've had time to read over it.
Right.
I will give just a backstory with this. This is something that we did work with our city legal department and got this reviewed and checked. And we have taken input from our committee members and the law department. Law department has rubber stamped this green light to be what is most reflective also with the charter to make sure we're compliant within that part.
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the job description?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Can you just, you don't have to go into detail, but are there any major changes or differences in this job description than the previous
Well,
25, 30 years?
Sure. Well, I know I need to have the one from 1994 handy. Mostly, yeah. I will say we worked with MTAS to kind of get us up to date with what a modern posting might look like. For example, there was the city of Dallas with currently hiring. Now they're larger. We get Texas. We understand that. But we like some of the verbiage at least that they had. Now a lot of that is listed in like the KSA parts. There are just some antiquated things that we did have previously in there. I mean, prior, honestly, to the internet. So that part we thought it'd be better to, make it good for 2025. And I know loosely we were given with the charter the direction that someone has to be hired when this needs a minimum of qualification of personnel experience. So that gave us at least room to make sure that we are default to more what the charter has to say about what this position is directed to. And I think this is a, opportunity to outline how the position, again, it's very unique in that it's created within the charter, reports to the board versus of many other positions I could think of in this city. So anything I didn't cover with that, just let me know. Like I say, the essential functions are what we have most closely to what's required by charter. And then we have what the committees come up with really is what we desire in a candidate. And thinking of the applicant side of it too, applying for this job, how do they know that they're going to be measured for, performance or what they bring to the table there? So.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving this job description indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so now you consider that approved, and so is the next step posting that, making that public?
Yes, and Nick and Kelly have worked to provide the selection committee a timeline. Now this isn't just all concrete, but we would like to post this, I believe it was as of next Friday's January 17th, to give us like a 45-day window, because we would like to meet after that has closed as a committee to review that set of resumes.
Okay.
And I know that this isn't, this is an exempt position. We still definitely believe in going through, as much as we can with being equitable in the search process through that. So that was something that came up yesterday. So if we keep this timeline, what I'll say to that is for the board purposes, we would likely be, I hope, having some candidates to review sometime after March, I would say, that we've met to go look through all of that. Earliest, I think, would probably be in April or so that we could, present that, any qualifying candidates to the board. If the first go round of postings doesn't get what we want, we can, come back and see what we need to fix to do that. But that is what we have planned for now. And we also would like to propose the salary range to put in this as well. And that's something, as long as the board is okay with, I believe goes to HR's overcompensation classification. So we were looking at a range to get the best qualified candidates of $75,000 to 100,000 of salary per year, so. there's
And would you remind us again, I know you've had broad participation, employee groups and others on the committee. Would you remind us who's on the committee?
Sure. So myself, and we have David Brace, we have Miss Stephanie Guptill here,
Right.
and we have Larry and
Larry McAfee.
McAfee and Jason Booker. So,
Okay, thank you.
and those are, I guess, making sure we have government and our fire
Yeah,
and
you got it, yeah.
police. For
General government.
Yes.
Excellent, good. Now, it's critical. I'm glad we have that participation of everybody in this process, because there's going to have to be a lot of trust in all of this. Okay, thank you.
So, other than that, let's see if we have more updates. We do also, we're excited to reach out to the civil service staff. That's something that's been important to me from the start of this. We know, all this talk, they are going to have a new manager to report to at the end of the day. So we really want to make sure that we get their input in with this as well. So, and then later down the road too, I think it's important. I know we have a director over here of another service, but any necessary stakeholder meetings like that, we might need to make across departments is something that we can welcome. So, want to be pretty comprehensive and appreciate the board's patience and time and willingness to.
Well, the board certainly appreciates your hard
Yes,
work.
thank you.
You're the one putting in the time and the hard work, so thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
I've got a
Very
lot
much.
of help. I'm happy to be here to do
Right.
it. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have a brief item on outside legal counsel. As we discussed a little earlier, we did engage with Devin Lyon to begin working with Nick on this, getting these rules to get drafted, again, to come back to us. And everybody not realize, but the civil service rules are important that employees have real clear access to them, which I think this will be much better and they'll be easier to understand, and they'll be much more available and less daunting for people to know exactly, what our scope is and how to operate, what the proper procedures are. Now, we have the whole matter of outside counsel generally. And so this first one we really needed to get started on it. So Devin is really authorized to work on just that right now. So then again, the board, I'd like to have a brief discussion with how we want to handle the matter of outside counsel. My opinion is that it will rely on Anderson for routine matters that we do not need to pay extra. We have the law department has great expertise, but there are occasionally, I think there are two things that could come up. There can be heavy load, something that would come before us that would involve an issue that we did not anticipate, that the law department did not have the resources to work with, and then we would have to make a decision as whether we needed outside counsel for that purpose, or on some occasions when there's some question about the necessity for civil service to have some advice independently of the law department, which reports to the administration. This is not set up to be an antagonistic relationship, and it's not. We don't want it to be. However, there is a reason we have a board, and we have this, as I said, arm's length from city government. So I think occasionally I'm not going to be chair much longer. My term's about ending, but either the chair or, when necessary, the entire board we might want to work. I don't think we'll want a formal vote every time we want to do this, but I think we will want more involvement than just the executive secretary in making some of these decisions is one to anticipate the use of outside counsel. So I guess I'll just throw that open. What I would like to suggest is that the board, to see whether the board is okay with my working with Nick and then the law department on, do we put out an RFP for what are our options for an hourly rate, or possibly there's some kind of retainer. I'm not sure what the most cost effective would be, but let me say, I don't anticipate this being a high expense item. I think for most meetings and most things, we do not need extensive outside counsel, if any. But I do think we want to have that option, because without it, I think we will be getting into problematic territory. and potentially conflict. So I'd like to just pursue what our options are and then maybe how to put an to pursue either requests for applicants or proposals from law firms or individuals who might want to pursue that and see what the rates are. But before we come to any agreement, we take it back to the board. I mean, does that sound reasonable? Okay. I don't know that that requires a vote, but it's, I think just in general, I think that falls generally within the discretion according to the chair, but I don't think the chair ought to take this on without the understanding of the board members. But I do think this is a time to rethink all of these sorts of relationships, and also to be having both the interest of civil service and employee, what civil service is about, employee protections in mind, and also the stewardship of city dollars as well. Okay, well, there's nothing else. Yeah, go ahead.
Add a little something to that. I like everything you said. I just want to make sure we have a clear process of how we determine which legal source we use.
Right.
Because you laid out a little bit, but at some point we need to have a process of when this comes up, how do we make that decision?
Right. I think what I anticipate happening is once we find out a little more, reporting back to the board and saying it's been suggested, or we could go ahead and, before anybody is hired, bring a process, or maybe I could bring if you wanted, I don't know if there's a huge rush, at the next meeting, we could say, well, here's the request we prepared for people to apply for this or show interest in this, and here's what we're thinking of using as we seek this legal assistance. I'd rather err on more board involvement in all of this, and more transparency for everybody. So, we can work on that, and I can update at the next meeting, and then at that point get board approval for the process we would use. And that, I think, I'm not sure what that would be yet, because this is kind of new to me.
Not the process of getting outside counsel, just when we would use them. If we have them, let's say we have them internally, which things come down the road, and how do we decide which ones are city council and which ones are outside council? That process just
right. I think it's a very good point. I think you have to decide again on who that. It could get awkward in that we have to wait for a formal meeting, or we have a meeting just for, say, if it's a minor thing that we need. So my thinking was that the chair would be able to make that decision, whoever the chair is, and then inform the board. But I'm open to more formal, that we would have a discussion before we sought outside counsel at all. That's, it's just I can see sometimes the schedule being such, that we have to wait for a meeting, that might get in the way of something we need some more immediacy on, is all.
One example of that, and I know the city would definitely, law department would let us know if there could be a potential conflict of interest to where the city law department would not represent it, say heaven forbid if we needed to.
Right, but that could well happen. I can see the city law department saying, hey, in this case, we really think that, and now we don't have, but we can make that independent as well.
Yes.
But we might get an indication from the city law department when they see that they don't feel comfortable, they're not appropriate to handle this issue.
And I think too, and like with Scott, with your question as well, kind of on the same thing, probably it would be good, Bill, if you can just prepare what we look at for like retainer fees or because I think I get what you're saying too is, okay, well, something pops up and we're at capacity here, but we need somebody to help us with this, what does that look like of us being able to access them, so.
Hypothetically, something unforeseen can come up we have a high number of appeals, or, and where city staff says, we just can't take all this on.
Yeah.
But once we're notified. But I would say generally, I think, especially, given the kind of the entirety of the situation, I think it would be good if the board were notified anytime that any decision was made, or emergency or anything else, that everybody know, through sharing that.
I think that's a good,
Yes.
practical part and for all of the board to be able to approve use of that or.
Right. Right. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have regular updates on where our expenditures are. So, even though that doesn't come out of our budget though, right, Nick? That comes out of Anderson, is that right? The outside council, where does that?
We do pay for the outside counsel.
We do pay for that, and we budgeted a certain amount?
Yes,
for that?
$60,000,
Okay.
of which we've already spent 34 or something like that, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
very good.
very well. Okay, do we have any other business to come before the board? Okay.
I just want to say, I love all the data that you brought, and I would like to see that, the details of the expenditures on a monthly basis.
I think
that's super helpful. Doesn't have to be in color, maybe it's in black and white.
I'll work on the format.
I'll maybe buy some glasses.
And then also.
We'll trade color for a larger font.
And I think that adopted versus the amendment is really important too, because that was one of the things we talked about, that was kind of the issue in the last meeting, is there were a lot of times the budgets were set at 60 or 30 or things like that, and then the amended were always brought up to what the expenditures were. And I think we weren't having those conversations 3-4 years ago. And I think now we need to make sure that we're looking at those numbers and we understand why we're making amendments.
I will say, this actually came from finance. I did not create this, but I did print it. But I'm not trying to dodge responsibility.
You hit Control P.
Yeah, so I but I'll definitely do that every month. But yeah, to your point there, some of those adjustments, they're when I spoke about that earlier, they're supposed to be small adjustments typically. What we saw in this department last year, that one of the larger items we had more than doubled through the course of the year beyond. So yeah, but that's something we should. Yeah, but I'll just bring those every month and make the format a little better and.
Black and white?
Yeah.
I'll bring some reading glasses too.
Bigger font.
Okay, any other business? Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
That always wins.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Oh, thank you.